and good morning. Welcome to the 2020 DMG MORI UK Dynamic Excellence Live event. Now this is replacing their annual open house event where normally hundreds of engineers would be visiting the headquarters here in Coventry, whereas now we can bring you that technology and interaction live on your screens. Starting shortly is the Universal Turning Solutions session. So if you're an engineer looking for a turning solution, this is your opportunity to learn more from what DMG MORI UK can offer. And it's your chance to ask those questions directly to the professionals. Plus, you'll be finding out more about DMG MORI Finance and how they can assist you with your purchase. Then at 11:15, we are talking automation. Then at 12, after sales service. And finally, at 12:45, turn mill technology. Plus, the UK launch tomorrow at 12 o'clock of the M1, a DMG MORI entry-level 3-axis vertical machining centre from £54,000. I'm really excited about that one. Anyway, it's enough from me. Make sure you get involved and let's head over to the main stage.
Thanks, Lindsay. We're here at the Coventry showroom of DMG MORI. I'm going to introduce you to everybody here. The man who knows everything about machine tool, allegedly, Paul Jones from MTD CNC. We've got Martin Adams, who looks after the turning applications here at DMG MORI, and Steve Finn, the managing director. Steve, this is a little bit different, isn't it?
It's really exciting because obviously the whole world's gone through a very difficult time over the last 7 or 8 months, and we continue to do so, but I guess it's really important to bring the news to our customers, talk to them about the technology that we're developing, you know, how we can help them with their efficiencies, and we're really looking forward to today to exploit all of those possibilities.
One of the things that wasn't on the agenda was actually the lunch, Steve. Any changes?
Yeah, that's a shame really, because we normally have around about 500 people come through here during this week when we have a live event, physical live event, and we bring in a pretty sharp chef who does some really nice cooking, which I believe in the nice hospitality. Customers are going to spend some time with us, and I like to look after them and give them some nice lunch and that sort of thing. So sorry, Paul, I see you lost a bit of weight,
breakfast.
Mate. Yeah, you lost. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, we'll get some bacon rolls in for you later.
Look forward to it.
Well, normally we're used to seeing 400 or 500 engineers over a 4-day period, but obviously we can't do that here. But we're going to be bringing you some really interesting information. But Steve, just pose a question to you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Within your portfolio, how many machines do you have?
Oh yes, you put me on the spot. 150 plus. I think it's 156.
57, you're very, very
close. Oh,
close.
okay, sorry, yeah. And we're developing all the time. And not only are we developing products within the portfolio, it's everything else around it. It's the digitisation, the automation, and also being able to link in third parties' equipment as well. That's a given for us. But we can supply most of the stuff from one stable.
Before we talk about turning with Martin, now you've come up with a cycle time challenge, I believe.
Well, we love cycle time challenges at MTD, as you'll know, and we've got one on the carpet here. Now, throughout, obviously, the live event over the next 2 days, we want you to put your comments in as to how fast you think this wheel is actually made and machined. Martin, could you maybe just give us a little bit of a detail on this actual application?
Okay, the wheel
and what
itself,
machine it's made on?
The machine for this would be a Gamma. This particular wheel that you see here is made on a Gamma in a
This is a mill turn, yeah.
Mill turn machine,
yeah.
Yes, which is going to be talked about later on. Principally, it's a spun wheel rather than a cast or a forge wheel. This is the strongest OEM style wheel. So you will pre-machine it to get it down to the within a 1 millimeter net shape, and then you will finish machine the spoke profile, the final details, the hole for the pressure sensing and so on. So it becomes a complete wheel.
Okay.
But that's as far as I'm going.
So
as you
we
can
need to
appreciate.
know what the machining time is. The machining time on this particular application. Put your comments, whatever social channel you're watching this on, whether it be YouTube, LinkedIn or Facebook, because we're streaming across all of them. There's also a prize, of course. Steve, maybe could you explain what the person that gets closest to it will receive?
Yeah, the prize will be a trip to our Fronton factory, COVID situation allowing, but we would take you to the factory, give you a very good tour of all the facilities, the manufacturing, the assembly facilities, and how we operate. And it's a great part of the country, down by the Alps, southern Germany. It'll be a very enjoyable trip.
Been there many times.
Yeah, we
Enjoyed
have.
it, yeah.
Yeah, well, as I say, I mean, when you look at the amount of money that is spent at Fronton with the new factory, it's quite incredible. But look, moving on, okay, we're talking about turning. Mm-hmm. Martin, can you tell us about the portfolio of machines? How many machines you have in the portfolio, please?
Numbers vary because people think of the CLX and the NLX, which we're going to specifically talk about today, as being the range, but it's not. We start on the chucking size around 100 mil, and we go all the way up to 800 millimeters with the CLX 750, we'll see again a little bit later, for that sort of capacity, and up to 2 meters in bed length. But there's also a lot more. There's our sliding head range. We even have a multi-spindle sliding head machine as well from that sort of point of view. But there's one that gets overlooked for a certain extent, except by the customers who buy them, of course, is the NZX range, which is used extensively in automotive and work of that nature.
I want to show we've got a video of a demo of the NLX, which I understand is the gear component at the front of the table.
Correct,
is that correct?
Yeah. That's
correct.
correct.
Could you talk me over the video?
Yeah, well, the NLX machine is smack bang in the middle of the range of the NLX things with the C-loss control. It starts off with a 10-inch main spindle and a 6-inch counter spindle. The component, as you can see, it's just starting away here, taking it from the blank. Ideal to make this machine for this sort of component because it completes the whole part. It's not just a matter of let's do the first stages, but if that's what you want, that's what we can provide you. But in a tougher material, in particular for this sort of nature, rather than going for the heat treatment, is to go with a tougher material, and then with the utilisation of the built-in motor turret that's behind that number plate that you see there in the centre of the turret is our built-in motor. Now that only drives the driven tool, so when we cut the gears and we cut the face groove, because it's that tougher material, we can achieve all the performance that's necessary to actually produce those teeth in that tougher material.
Paul, I know you've got some questions on this, haven't you?
It's a really interesting machine. I mean, the NLX 2500, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that one of your best-selling machines?
It is, very much. We manufacture, of the NLX 2500 range, 6.8 machines every single day. So 8.6 machines, 365 days a year, that's the average.
And I think it's important to sort of, you've mentioned the application that you're machining there, but to position this machine, because looking at the specification of it, you've mentioned correctly the BMT turret. I mean, that's a solid method of machining, isn't it? But also things like the 10,000 milling on the turret as well. These are kind of things that set this machine a little bit apart,
yes.
Don't they?
Yeah, 10,000 RPM, so it gives you performance of a small vertical machining centre. So you're able to produce what you would traditionally do with a 2-axis or a C-axis machine and then transfer it to another process, incurring the time. What we're trying to do here is, with this range of machines we've done for such a very long time, is complete that process. Because it's all of our decisions are about the customer process need. How do we make life simpler for the customer?
And I even saw some things that, again, really impressed me about thermal displacement, because these are all important factors as well, aren't they? Maintaining long-term accuracy.
Yeah.
The technology you've got where you recirculate coolant through the casting as well, things like that, pretty impressive.
Well, this machine type has been used, as said, in automotive for a very long period of time. The fact that the coolant is passed through the bed of the machine maintains the stability. You can enhance it by adding a magnescale, which allows you to chase those microns, because everybody loves to chase microns. But then it gives you an advantage as well if you're machining very hard materials up to 57, 60 Rockwell material. Producing those parts, you hold exceptional tolerances, SPCs, really at very high levels, but holding just microns, 2 microns over a hours and hours of production.
And with it being the most popular selling machine, Steve, these elements are obviously what people want, aren't they?
Yeah, the NLX actually derived from the NL, and it's been developed and developed further on. But you know, you've got one customer who's particularly interested in the thermal stability. So Martin mentioned the automotive sector. They're going to be long runs. So you want the same component off in the morning as the afternoon as the evening. So that's very true. The machine is very thermally stable. You get other people that want to incorporate the ability to mill on the machine and take a component off in one hit. So therefore, you know, the milling capability, again, as Martin said, with the built-in motor, gives you that, you know, capability of a small vertical machining centre. So your fixturisation is easy. You just hold it in the chuck and you produce your components. So all of these features coming together, solid slideways is great for interrupted cutting or hard turning, those kind of applications. So we look at the NLX for set applications. And I think Martin will go on to talk about other ranges, yeah?
We talk about cooling the casting, but what about the spindle side? I mean, do you have any areas there that maintains that?
The main spindle is cooled, integrated into that system. It's our own spindle design, the Turnmaster spindle with a 3-year warranty, unlimited hours. The motor that, as I said, drives the driven tools, cooled independently. It's not the one that does the turret indexing, just the actual driving to the tool, so you've got all that performance. So yes, that all helps in chasing that those microns, and also making sure that your production is consistent, because that's what's really important.
Can we move on to the CLX? We've got a group video from Germany. Could you talk over what we're seeing here and the benefits?
Well, the CLX starts off, the screen that you saw was with the slimline Siemens control. It's an exceptionally easy control to use for everybody. This particular machine starts off with a 12-inch chuck. This, as I mentioned, you could have an 800mm chuck, which is unusual for this sort of size of machine. It's the largest in the CLX range, but it's built for that. The standard spindle bore on this, that's through the chucking system, is a 127mm spindle bore. So 5-inch bar for those people who are a little bit older like myself that understand that aspect of it. But it's a modular design, so you can take it, as you see here, steady, or not steady with a tailstock, or changed out for a sub-spindle. So it then becomes a complete package. So you can have it 2-axis, C-axis, Y-axis, sub-spindle.
Also important to say at this point as well, we want people to ask Martin and Steve questions throughout the show. That's one of the whole purposes of this live feed. So if you have got anything you want to explore in more detail, then the guys are here to answer that. The CLX machine, I look at, I note there's a VDI turret on that.
That's correct, yeah.
Is that the main option? Because that's slightly different than from the NLX.
Yeah, the NLX is a bolt-on style. Been around a very long time, exceptionally rigid. VDI is quick as change. You're not removing the bolts to change the unit over. The system can also have what we have our Trifix to bring in the additional accuracy. So you can change them over very quickly, but with additional accuracy. But VDI is the most common type of tool holder.
And they come with scales as well, as standard?
Sorry?
So they come with the digital measurements?
Yes, the Magna scale. I mentioned that you can add it to the NLX as an enhancement. But for the CLX range, because we're not with the box slideways, we have the linear scales. They're excellent, linear slideways, very excellent for.
I'll just ask a question to Paul actually. Do you think the NLX and the CLX are very popular because they're flexible for customers?
I think it gives you the choice, doesn't it? I think that's the ability, and it's funny you should ask me that question because I was actually going to ask Steve that one too. But I think for myself, when I look at it, I think having the option of we've got the applications on the table, and you can see some of the complex parts, some of the differing materials, some of the operations that need to be performed. This is about, I suppose, getting the application and then tying that part to the machine.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, that would be my question to you, really, Steve. What is the fundamental differences? Because I look at the CLX and I think
if you look at them on paper, you could say that they're almost competitive, but there are some very subtle differences. And of course, those subtle differences then come into play when you're talking to a customer who wants this, customer who wants that. So, for example, you know, it may be a Siemens control, maybe a Mitsubishi control, it may be VDI tooling, it may be block tooling, it may be Capto tooling, it may be quick change tooling of some description. So what we've got is we've got a range of machine tools in the turning section, universal turning, that is extremely wide because our customer base is extremely wide. And what somebody wants here is very different to what somebody wants there. So we can feed the market to exactly what they want. And we don't have to shoehorn in, you know, a machine that hasn't got the right attributes to do the job, and we're trying to sell it, and the customer then ends up buying the wrong machine for the wrong application. The application is key here. So when Martin looks at these kind of things and he decides really that's the style of machine that is best for that customer, that's what we pursue, and we actually try and tell the customer that.
The spindle technology, this is a real case in point, because your spindle is, I remember selling machines, you know, if a spindle goes down,
didn't you give them away?
Regardless of, didn't do discounts.
That's what you said, isn't it, Steve?
Didn't do
Well,
discounts.
he thought he was better than me.
but if a spindle goes down, it can be expensive and it can be time consuming, and if the machine's down, I mean, Mark on his bike, if he has a puncture, he might be fast down the road, but if he has a puncture, his competitors come past him, didn't they? So it's all about making sure that spindle is reliable, and you know, how did DMG Mori do that?
Yeah, the spindles themselves are built in-house, and we have control over the quality and of course the cost. We don't skimp on bearings, we use grade A bearings all the way through, and in the event that a spindle needs replacing, generally, unfortunately, what we see these days is through a crash. We can talk about crash insurance a bit later through the program, but actually it's got to be replaced quickly. Spindle utilisation is critical for customers to earn their keep. So it's a cartridge system, in and out, done very, very quickly. We control it, we're understanding of it, we stock it, we're responsible for it.
I don't think anybody else in the industry offers a 36-month warranty on spindles, do they?
I don't think so, no.
And I think it's incredible.
It goes across a lot of our product on the Speedmaster spindles, machining centres as well.
Coming up, question and answer session in a short while, so if you have got anything that you want to ask the gentleman here on the sofa, please get that to us using the social platforms that you're on.
And before we do, DMG Mori Finance is an amazing product that you may not know, or you may know a little about, but Lindsay's with James Clist to talk a little bit more how you can afford some of these machines.
So, James, thank you very much for joining us
Thank
here
you, Lindsay.
on the live show. DMG Mori Finance, tell me all about it.
Well, DMG Mori Finance is what it says. It's the group's own leasing company. We don't go to third-party banks. It is a company that's formed purely to support customers' investment with DMG Mori.
Okay, so what is it that you do differently?
Well, I think the fundamental thing is we focus purely on DMG Mori machines. The sole purpose of the business is to support customers' investment, both new and existing, with DMG Mori, allowing them to buy technologically advanced machines at an affordable monthly cost.
Right, okay, so who is it that's using this?
Well, interestingly, over 50% of the current DMG Mori user base in the UK is in the subcontract sector, followed very closely by OEMs. So it's about a 50-50 split in reality, and across those customers, 48% of all the machines sold by DMG Mori UK are financed by DMG Mori Finance currently.
Wow, okay, good numbers there. So you're obviously convincing people that this is a better way to go. So is it the fact that, if you're saying, do I go to banks, don't I go to banks, and what's the major difference that you're doing then?
I think the fundamental is that we are specialists in what we do. We understand DMG Mori machines. We understand the impact that investment has on an engineering business, which is why we'll try and give them a sensible period of time, up to 6 months, to generate income before they make their first repayment. Right. And also, because we understand the residual value of the machines, we can basically defer that to the back end of the agreement, which means that the customer benefits from a significantly reduced monthly cost, thus making it more competitive.
Wow, that's quite interesting actually, just seeing how you're basically viewing a machine tool differently.
Absolutely. I think machine tool investment in the UK has been the wrong way around for a number of years, where deposits are required, customers start making payments immediately, when in fact the income flow is very different to that. So important, very, very important to us is that the customers generate income before they start making their repayments. That means that the investment's likely to be much more successful.
Okay, talking about investments then and relating back to what they were talking about on the main stage, the NLX, a machine, it's about £190,000. What would you do for me?
Well, first of all, I would talk to you because no one customer is the same. But the standard deal that we have at the moment would be a deal where that machine comes in, hits the floor and generates income for up to 6 months before the first repayment is made.
Right, and talking repayments, what offers can you give basically?
Well, fundamentally that machine, that 6-month period could give the customer on a single shift operation at an industry standard charge out rate around £40,000 of income generated before the first repayment is made.
You know, and that's what people want to hear. Now, of course, we all know it, it's no secret. It's a difficult time at the moment. The current climate is different to what it's been like. So what would you do differently and how are you tailoring deals, shall we say, to people in the current climate?
It's not so much what we would do, Lindsay, it's what we do.
Okay.
So first of all, the fundamental thing that we had to do was to support our existing customers. And we did that from March onwards, and we're still doing it today with certain customers that are in industry sectors that have not bounced back quite as quickly. So we've given them holiday periods, we've let them maintain their cash in the business so that we make sure they're going to be there to come through the other side of this. Right. So that's the first element. Yeah. But the second element now obviously is we need to create the environment to give customers the confidence to invest as we move out of the pandemic.
Yeah, because obviously years ago, you've been through this before, back in 2008, and you're there to support customers going forward, right? It was
a horrendous problem in 2008. You know, the banks really wanted to stop lending money, there were impaired balance sheets, and deals were very difficult to place. The important thing for us now is that we look forward, not look back.
Yeah, and how do people get in touch with yourself?
Either through me here at DMG MORI or through your local area sales manager.
Okay, so right, to summarise, because you've sold it to me, to summarise, DMG MORI Finance, what does it do?
Well, obviously it's specialist, it's flexible, it very much is competitive in the marketplace, and we're here to support customers moving forwards.
Right, brilliant. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Now it's over to the gents on the main stage for your questions and answer session.
That's incredible stuff. I mean, 6 months on any of your portfolio machines, or up to 6 months. I mean, that's a bit of a game changer, isn't it?
Certainly gives customers the opportunity to earn before they have to pay, and that's what it's all about, generating that cash rather than try and take the money off people straight away.
No excuse for the salesman now.
No excuse whatsoever, no, but they're using it really, really well because, you know, the sales guys now have to become real business managers from a point of view of consulting with the customer from the application, where this is where Martin and his team come in to play, and then James will come in on the finance. So we've got experts in every area to support the customer. It's not one hat fits all, and it will give us a really tailored package to suit.
Well, it's been quite interesting on our live feeds through YouTube, LinkedIn and Facebook as well. We've got a fantastic question here, which is probably aimed at Martin. Where do you produce the NLX and the CLX?
Right, CLX is produced at 2 factories in Famot in Poland and in Tortona in Italy. The NLX is produced in Japan, but also in Graziano in Italy. So the 2 manufacturing plants we have in Italy have split the manufacturing from those. It saves having to move some of these castings halfway around the world, so your delivery times can be improved. That's one of the main reasons behind it.
And I know you said to me earlier on that you had a question when we first started the live feed that came in.
Yeah, we've got quite a few coming through now, so we'll try and rattle through these. The first one here we've got is there support for startup businesses? This is quite important, isn't it? Because
DMG MORI Finance is our own book, so from that perspective we have a different view to perhaps how a traditional finance house or bank would work. But we are very active in supporting manufacturing, and we only finance machine tools. So for example, we've just in the process of delivering a £500,000 CTX multi-axis machine with a robot on the front to a single owner. So he just works on himself, and his robot is going to be his pal, is going to be his worker. And he is the startup situation. And we can go through that, yes, absolutely.
I suppose at least you won't get any feedback from the robot, will you?
No.
He doesn't have any time off sick either.
Right, okay, another question. If you ran the NLX 24/7, how many years would the machine last, and will accuracy get less?
All machines you've got to service. Any machine in the world, any mechanical bit of equipment you have to service. But the NLX 2500 is the best seller, and it lasts for far too long. So it causes me a bit of a problem on resales. I've got some of the older predecessors to NLX, the SL, still running in the marketplace 25, 30 years ago. I would expect to see an NLX in production, even in today's environment where it's potentially working 24/7, 15, 20 years time on 24/7 working. Solid slideways. It's a very, very robust machine.
I suppose those elements that we discussed earlier about the thermal control all help with that accuracy, don't they? Important to say, coming up at 11:15 we have the automation session. So you mentioned the automation on the robot there. That's something we'll be digging into more detail then. We've also had a question as well about the turrets. This is quite interesting actually. 12 stations. Do you go above 12 stations on any of your machines?
Well, it's 12 station or 20 station turret on the NLX. It gives you flexibility, particularly if you're tailoring it more towards bar-fed components. So we would utilise that with a counter spindle, finish the components as much as you can, extended period sister tools. So particularly with the NLX 1500, the 2000, the 2500, perfect scenarios for those sort of machine configurations for that sort of production. If not, there's an alternative machine for higher volumes, possibly for smaller parts, more tailored to one of our other of our portfolio.
It doesn't really end at 20 tools though either, because I suppose the tool holders you can get now can mean that a 20 station turret can hold 30, 35 tools.
Yes.
Manchester, is it? The tooling people have got?
Yep.
And he's got a turret on there. He's got 76 tools on that turret.
Wow.
76. And it's controlling
no collision issues, no.
Well, I don't know about that, but it can control it okay. It's still got the strength to hold that on there and actually drive that through, and that comes from built-in motor technology.
Sorry guys, we are doing very well, but I must admit there's one last question I can offer before we hand over to Lindsay to conclude this session. Any technical cycles on these machines, and if so, what ones are supported? Martin?
Well, the control, the CLX machine has the Siemens control, the slimline control. It's not application based. That is a traditional control with conversational program. Excellent system. The CLOS control though is. The CLOS control, particularly for the turning for the NLX and the other range of machines, is very much application based. So you can add if necessary, or you could just utilise the ones that come necessary for the machine. So if you're having a Robo-to-Go or a gantry system, you don't have to program it via a separate control system. It all comes from the control panel, one of the apps. Whether you're gear skiving or hobbing, depends on which options you wish to go for, that's also controlled from an app on the machine. So it's very simple and straightforward.
So can you almost create your own as a user in some instances?
Potentially you can, yes. Yeah. Many of our
because that could then be shared, I assume, in a community maybe, or is that
possibly?
Yeah, apps are building all the time, aren't they?
Apps are building all the time. Our DMQP partners, DMG MORI quality partners, they're providing apps, Samvic, One Horn and other manufacturers are developing these apps to get better performance out of their equipment that then relates directly to the machine performance. So the customer gets what he wants. It's a quality.
It's like an iPad. It's very intuitive.
Yeah.
Very straightforward to run.
That means Paul won't be able to operate an iPad.
Even
Yeah.
Paul could do it. I'll show you later.
Guys,
yeah.
we're out of time. It's
Don't
been
forget cycle time challenge.
it's an intriguing insight into turning, but as Paul says, please remember the cycle time challenge. I can assure you, and Paul would back me up, the trip to Fronton is amazing. But let's join Lindsay to sum this session up.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all of your questions. Look, if you've still got questions, don't worry, still put them in the comments box below and we'll be answering those in due course. If you've missed any of the session this morning, don't worry, because all of them will be available on demand on the MTD CNC website. Now, go and get yourself a coffee or a cup of tea or a drink, because we will be back talking automation at 11:15. Hello and welcome to the 2020 DMG Mori UK Dynamic Excellence Live event, and you're joining us in the automation section of today's show. Now this is a perfect opportunity for you to interact directly with the DMG Mori UK team throughout the whole of the session. Now if you have any questions, please message them in the comments box below. Automation isn't just a bolt-on for DMG Mori, it's in the DNA of their machines. So next, we're going to see what DMG Mori have to offer the industry and find out how financially accessible automated solutions can be. Over to you, Mark.
Lindsay, today Steve has brought me to one of his customers, High Force in Coventry. This is a bit of a case study of how the NLX has actually been working here for their hydraulic solutions. Now Steve, tell me a little bit about the relationship that DMG Mori UK have with High Force.
Okay, the relationship goes back over 10 years now. 17, 18 machines of various types, and they bought from relatively small machines to very big machines for their components. So the NLX fits quite nicely in the portfolio there.
The vast majority of our products are high pressure hydraulic tools, need to be precision engineered due to the pressures that they work at. So yeah, it serves mainly the power generation, oil and gas, mining, heavy construction industries, civil construction, shipbuilding and marine repair.
And when you look at the NLX with the Robo2Go, this is their first venture into automation, isn't it?
Yes, this is the first one. Previously had the NL machine, so they hadn't understood all the attributes of the NL, the cutting conditions, what you can achieve from it. Here we've got the NLX as a standard product with the Robo2Go added on that is used actually through the control as a single source. So it's a one unit piece of equipment, and therefore it's very simple to use on the control and on the machine itself.
And does this now give them the opportunity to run lights out engineering, but also the operation of most of the components can be in one op?
But it's actually the efficiency of the machine, and you're 100% right, the unattended running is a big bonus.
You know, the ability to just put a piece of raw material in and let it come out the other side in one shot reduces production times, in effect cost, and yeah, gets us increasing capacity without increasing factory space or employees.
The automation is the way forward. You know, the customer I think will go on to explain about some of the problems that he has in his business and how this has overcome some of those issues, and that's not unique. That's right across the UK and across the world, manufacturing.
And tell me a little bit about the application, Steve, in reference to how does DMG Mori UK actually listen to their customers and get the right fit for them with the machine?
Yeah, the automation that we have is very, very, very varied. As you know, we've got some 50 odd applications we can apply to automation. So we have to look at the type of component, the weight of the component, the type of complexity, so that depends on the style of machine, because the Robo2Go could go on a much more complex machine as well as machining centre. So it's a whole case study all the way through of looking at the customer's parts, understanding his throughput, how many components he wants to do in one hit, and so on and so forth.
Welcome to the DMG Mori Dynamic Excellent Live event. We're on our second session. I'm here with Paul Jones, allegedly knows everything about machine tools, but we're going to be talking about automation. Robbie Callum, Robbie I've known for quite a long time. We've done a couple of visits with customers, and you know, they sing your praises, so you're the right man for the job. So that was a cracking case study about automation, because High Force, that was their first automated project, wasn't it? Yeah. And it's basically given them an opportunity where their guys are actually working on the shop floor on other projects, basically.
Yeah, as Steve said, it's very simple to program, very simple to operate, and the great thing about this type of platform is that they're investing for the current work and you know, within the next 3 years, whatever they can see, the here and the now, and then they're also investing for the future. So it's very flexible systems. They can reconfigure it however they see fit in 5, 10, 15 years time.
And very briefly, can you tell the audience the range of automation that DMG MORI actually offer with their machines?
I mean, it's huge. It's pretty much every type of machining platform or solution that we provide. You could have pallet loading, you could have robot arms. There's lots and lots of different types, and it's all sort of driven by the application, driven by the quantities that the person wants to do, what they want to do, what they want to achieve, and what the long-term vision is for the business.
You're very much, you know, on the sales side. Are you seeing that we talk about automation and we preach automation, but when you're doing your, let's call it door knocking, prospecting, is it really something that engineers, regardless of this COVID situation, are now really starting to think about?
Historically, it's always been, not always, but generally it's the larger companies that would invest in like big linear lines or rotary pallet pools or robots. And what we're seeing more and more now is smaller companies. I've literally just took an order for a very, very small company, 2 men in a shed with a 5-axis machine and a robot arm. And that is the way that the industry is moving forwards.
Now, it's quite interesting actually that we've got probably one of the best machines in this facility here behind me, the NHX 4000 with the RPS system. Great backdrop, but tell us a little bit about it. I know Paul's got some questions on this because we've reviewed this machine, but just what are we actually seeing here? How does it work? What are the benefits?
So, yeah, the 21 RPS pretty much stands for 21 pallets in the rotary pallet pool. Or rotary pallet solution. You can have a 14 or a 5, depending on the types of work that you've got, quantities, things like that. This configured, as you can see, is integrated and supplied by DMG MORI to fit directly with the NHX 4000, 5000. And we also have carrier pallet pools, which are single level linear lines, and also multi-level, and you could even then go down the mattress route, which is a robot cell, and have that loading horizontal as well. So again, huge amount of flexibility, all driven by the customer's needs.
Before we move on, just want to say as well, if this is the first session you've joined, plenty of sessions coming throughout today and tomorrow. We are running a cycle time challenge on this wheel that you can see here, which we heard from Martin about earlier, how it's machined. We need to know basically the machining time of that, and if you're the closest to the correct result, you'll win a trip to Germany when it's COVID secure to the DMG MORI factories. Robbie, on this NHX then, let's look at this machine. One of the questions I always think with engineers, they always sometimes try and put obstacles in their way of buying things. Would they say with something like this, actually I haven't got the work to feed it, or should they be looking at it differently and thinking, actually if I put this in here with this pallet system, I might not need my 3 VMCs over there. You know, I can save on my floor space, I need less people, and the machine is going to be far more efficient.
It's still so common to go into prospects or customers and they have just banks and banks of 3-axis or 3-axis with the 4th-axis rotary table. And when you really crunch the numbers on a platform like this, the cost justification, the payback, and even just the space saving in there as well, the labour, when all that feeds in, it becomes kind of a no-brainer really. The numbers really drive the investment. Yeah. Well,
because we hear about efficiencies of machines, and there's always different figures banded around. You know, a VMC is 35% efficient, i.e. the spindle cut time. One of these with a pallet system can be up to 98, 99. That's a big difference, isn't it?
I mean, I like to talk in real numbers with the customers I've got that have these, all these machines, because then it's relatable to other people, and it's real. And if we just took this platform, you've just said 98%, and that's exactly the type of uptime that we're seeing on these types of machines. I have a customer running basically this exact machine.
That's good,
120 hours. Sorry,
it was a guess. But
it
was a good guess.
120 hours a week in, week out. It just never stops running. And the great thing about him, when you start talking about, well, you know, I don't have lots and lots of the same type of work, and he's got tombstones in there that are set up for his running repeating jobs, but then you've also got the alien work as well, and also some pallets with nothing on. So then he can, when his customers or potential prospects come in, you can say, well, look, you got this space, let's move forward.
And I think that's one of the things when you see on your cube in here, it looks like it's a perfect job for a horizontal machining centre, and it is. But that doesn't necessarily have to be parts like that, does it?
No.
It can be varied. And one of the questions I would ask you as well, Robbie, is the horizontal machining centre. Having sold machines before, I sold very few of them.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's an undersold concept.
Do you think it wasn't the machine, it was you?
Probably. That probably had a lot to do with it. But in all seriousness, it's an undersold concept, isn't it? Do you agree?
Yeah. The problem is a lot of manufacturing, especially subcontractors now, they've got to be flexible. So a lot of people will now move down the 5-axis route, so it gives them, let's say, the 5-sided machining, or in some cases, with a window, 6-sided machining, and just snap the parts off. Recently, over recent years, I've seen more and more companies going away from high volume, sort of simple parts where they'll machine 3 sides, turn it round on the other pallet, and then machine the other 3 sides, and the part's finished. If you have a look at the table, historically you can see this sort of square block, and that's like a fluid transfer block, and that was very, very common over like the last few decades that you'd see that kind of part.
We've got to move on a little bit because we've got some other machines in the range to look at. Now the NMV 3000 with the AWC. Could you talk us through this video, please?
Absolutely. So the AWC comes in 3 configurations, all of which have the 230mm diameter pallet that you can see on here. So the biggest seller in the UK is the 34 pallet, but we also offer, and this is the one that I always try and propose as the primary solution, the 114. And what that allows, you can see the shelves inside the AWC. It allows the customer, we don't need to be involved, we'll train them how to do it, reconfigure all the shelves themselves, and it basically gives them 114 pallets within the same working envelope. So it's the same shell, if you like, and they can move it up and down. And as I said earlier, future-proofing, it might be that 34 pallets works now for the work you've got, but if you go down, you can adjust this. It
doesn't have to be expanded. It's not. You don't have to retrofit, because when I looked on the website and I saw the difference from the pallets from and to, I thought to myself, was that, can that be right? But what you're saying is then it almost expands itself.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can adjust to your customers' needs or even future prospects as well. And this type of platform, again, we spoke about 98%. I have this type of machine, or quite a few of them now. The NMVs nationally, they're a really undersold product for us. It's our sort of dark secret, really. They are absolutely fantastic machines.
Well, I saw one in here a few weeks ago before it was shipped to a customer, and I was talking to Steve about it, and I looked, and I'm sure you can give us more detail, but the octagonal spindle on it.
Yeah.
I looked at that and I was intrigued because I'd never seen that before. What difference does that make to the machine's performance, or it cutting metal?
The ORC ram is basically an octagonal ram, and the spindle's housed inside that. Tomorrow, when we cover the NMV, I'm going to talk a bit more in depth on that. But for that, it's like having a giant box guideway Z-axis coming down, but completely supported from all sides. So there's quite a bit to it, box-in-box construction, and that I'll go through a bit more detail tomorrow. But the ultimate thing is it's very, very rigid, very accurate.
And talking about machines that really sort of have dominated a lot of your sales, we've got a video here of the DMU 50 PH, with a PH system, I should say. Could you run through this with us as well, please, Robbie?
So the DMU 50 is our best-selling 5-axis machine. So we've been selling the first, second and third generations for about 23 years now. And within that time, we've sold thousands of them. The PH cell that you can see here on the video comes in a number of configurations, 24 pallet, 150mm pallets, all the way up to 500mm pallets, and they all work with the DMU 50 and other machines within our range.
When you say that it's very popular, why, in your view, why is it that popular?
So it's a brilliant subcontractor's machine. That's how I say it. And I know that OEMs and everyone else will buy with them as well. But in my opinion, the way that I sell the machine, or that solution, whether on one day you're doing aluminium, the next day you're doing titanium, some sort of carbon steel, it allows the user to basically just, again, adjust to their customers' demands. It's a very accurate machine. There's lots and lots of features on it, but it's a very reliable, very accurate machine.
And with the PH system from the automation side, could you just explain that to engineers that are watching? What configurations do you have for that particular product?
Yep. So as I said, you've got the 148mm Aroa pallets. and you could have 24 of those on a single level. Then you've got the 210 mil, 320, 400 and 500, and obviously the quantity's reduced because the footprint's the same. So yeah, it's our best-selling pallet loader because it's low cost, it's very compact, and it allows you to run through the night, maybe even a weekend. The last one of these I sold, and I quote the customer, with his 5-axis machine and PH150, that equates to 2.5 machines, just machines with his operators loading them. So the cost justification is there. Yeah.
When you look at all of these, and I know we're pushed for time here, I look at all these machines and I think to myself, I just think the flexibility is key, isn't it? Being able to offer, you know, the different models. But DMG MORI focus a lot on speed. Okay, these machines are very, very fast. When you add automation into the mix, is it as important?
Yes, definitely. And all the automation is different. So we always focus on the application. We've all said it quite a few times in the last session, this session. And if the customer's looking to shave time, you know, this type of platform where you've got the twin pallet changer and other machines that we offer, twin pallet changer is the quickest, well, one of the quickest ways to basically just keep cutting metal. So in addition to that, we've got, you know, a huge amount of reliability in these machines. So you've got, this big pallet pull feeding this machine that just never stops cutting.
And I suppose the speeds of the spindle give you better surface finishes and things like that, don't they?
I mean, it's everything. It's the speed, it's the configuration, the actual makeup of the machine tool. It's just everything works in unison together, and it's why we're the market leader.
Sounds like you enjoy selling them.
I do.
And to be fair, you know, being with Robbie for, you know, what, 2 or 3 days on two trips, you know, all your customers really rate what you've actually delivered them. It's actually working for them, it's productive for them, and it's making, you know, more money, I presume, because they keep ordering more machines from you, which is great. So
and ask this man questions. Ask him questions after the.
Yeah, very much so. Now, Robbie, I know that you've been very, very. It's a great example, I suppose, is a lot of your customers have used your unique finance. So for engineers that are watching the live stream, if you want to know how to buy a machine like this behind me, Lindsay is with James Clist, who will tell us more.
James, right, thank you very much for joining us here
Thank
today
you, Lindsay.
at the live event. Now, we are going to talk about DMG MORI Finance in relation to automation, but let's begin. Who are DMG MORI Finance?
Well, DMG MORI Finance is what it says on the tin. It's the group's own leasing company. DMG MORI is much more than a machine tool company. It's a total solutions provider. And one of the key areas is to support investment in technologically advanced machine tools.
But I could basically go out there, buy a machine and go to the bank. So what makes you different?
I think financing now has changed. Traditionally, yes, companies would go and buy a machine, they'd pick maybe the lowest cost or whatever, and then they'd go to a bank to find a finance package that worked.
Yeah.
I believe it's changed, and now we work with the customers right at the start of their investment decision, understanding how much money they can make from an investment, and we support them through that process.
Okay, so if you're working with them and you're working with DMG MORI, how do you view a machine tool differently? Because ultimately that customer wants the highest amount of technology, but for the lowest monthly payments.
Well, the great thing within DMG MORI is we also have DMG MORI used machines. So with the help of them and the expertise of my colleagues in Germany, we have a tacit understanding of what machines are worth at the end of 5, 6 or 7 years. And because of that, we can put the best residual values available in the marketplace on these machines, which means that you get the lowest monthly cost.
And who's using you?
Well, the split of customers with DMG MORI UK is about 50-50 between OEM and subcontract, and 48% of all the machines sold within the UK are financed by DMG MORI Finance.
Oh wow, so you've got good numbers there, so people should have confidence as well.
Absolute confidence, yes.
Okay, let's relate it back to automation, the PH150. How would you view this differently?
Well, automation can be viewed by some banks as having less of a residual value. It may be a less appealing lending proposition. That's not the way we view it. We very much view it as part and parcel of the machine. So the same financing terms, whether it's say 6 months before the first payment gets made, The same residual value gets applied to the automation as to the machine tool.
And do you have to buy it all together? Because these machines are prepped for automation in the future. So what if you've got a machine and you think, actually, I want automation later down the line?
Lindsay, that's a really good point. A company that buys a machine today may not view they have enough volume parts to take automation today. So we'll come back and we'll finance a PH150 system or any of the other supporting products a year or 2 years after the event, in line with the customer's requirements.
And you've got some calculations on this, haven't you?
Yeah, we've done some very, very simple numbers that it very much shows that you can take a technologically advanced machine with automation and compare it with a less technologically advanced machine.
So a lower cost machine.
A lower cost machine with a man stood in front of it, and we can help the customer through the investment process to show that the investment with DMG MORI can be more competitive from a financial perspective and more productive from a production perspective.
Okay, so I think we're running out of time a little bit, but in essence, what can you do for somebody under the umbrella of DMG MORI Finance?
We can bring our expertise to the situation. We're very, very flexible because no customer is different, is the same. So we'll be flexible and we're here to support customers moving forward.
And especially in the current climate. Right, over to you, gents, back to questions and answer session. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Well, it just shows you, doesn't it? You know, the finance is unique to DMG MORI, and I can understand exactly why you sell so many machines if you need that. But the questions and answers, you know, obviously automation is a very, very strong part in our industry because of the amount of questions that are coming through. The first one I'm going to throw at you, Robbie, do you have a machine that plays well with an Aroa automation system?
So pretty much every milling machine, give or take maybe some of like the new M1 that we're going to see the world premiere for, pretty much every milling machine can integrate with Aroa automation or maybe Shunk or something else. So yeah, it doesn't matter if it's 5-axis, horizontals, we can integrate with pretty much most automation suppliers on the market.
And I think that's quite a key point, isn't it? Is that even though you've invested heavily for many years in your own automation systems, your machines will work with third-party integrated products, yeah?
It's important because a lot of customers who already have sales established, they might be running, let's say Aroa, for example, might be running Aroa everywhere, so they want an Aroa product. And you know, the Aroa products have their advantages as well over our products. So it's great that we have open options that we can both go to Aroa or Lang or someone else or our own.
What about getting a piece of kit like this into your factory, Robbie? What's involved in the installation? I mean, you know, some will say, do you need foundations? I mean, it's obviously cited perfectly here on, you know, on the floor.
Yeah.
Power consumption, the economics of it. What are those aspects?
So, I mean, getting it into the facility, obviously it doesn't come in as what we see here. It's all broken down in pieces. And that makes it very easy to actually get the machine in. Obviously that's dictated by the actual opening to get it through, so as long as we can get the machine tool through, then all what we see here behind us can be built up around the machine.
I've got a really good question that's come through actually. Is the automation control by the actual machine? No, sorry, I'll read that again. Is the automation controlled by the machine?
Okay, so it depends on the platform. So what we see here within Celos, so something that Steve spoke about earlier, you've got the app-based system, and within that then you have the actual pallet manager. So you can see here there's no screen around this door, it's all managed through Celos. If we went to a different product, maybe with a PH from Famot, we can have the screen separate, so that's separate control. A third party, again, they would have their own job management software.
Now, there was a couple of things that you wanted to mention on this, wasn't it?
Redundancies, and I don't mean people losing their jobs. I mean, you know, let's say this is going to be running overnight. Yeah. Let's say you have a tool breakage. Yeah. These are all real life situations. Tool wear, tool breakage, something goes wrong. How do you monitor that, and how do you try and mitigate that to the best way possible?
So within the NHX platform, we have tool break detection built into the tool changer. So you buy the machine to cut metal, so you don't want to be coming down really and probing just to make sure the tool's still there. But on, let's say, more flexible, like we spoke about the DME 50, which wouldn't have that, you can then create a macro to just come down and do tool break detection in that way. You've also got things like the tool monitoring cycles that will monitor the draw and the current of the spindle to see if the drill or the end mill, whatever it might be, is broken. So there's a lot going on in the background that you don't see that allows you to run continuously.
And is that, so if you're sitting at home of an evening, I mean, we talk about, and this is real life situations, engineers are now, small companies buying machines like this because they want to do the things that we've talked about, run through the night. Can they dial in and can they see what's actually happening? I saw a guy the other week and he said he used to go back to the factory at 9 o'clock every evening, and I used to think to myself, really, do you need to do that these days?
So quite a well-sold product that we offer is DMG MORI Messenger, and that allows you to your phone, your tablet, your computer, so you can be sat watching a film at home, literally just log in and just see your machine running, see how many parts it's done, that sort of thing. Then if you want to take it to the next level, we also offer cameras inside that you can basically just log in, or again through your phone, and log in and actually see the machining, see what's happening. So
another question that's come through, who is responsible for the machine and automation?
So I suppose it depends on the automation. The machine obviously is us.
Yeah.
If you were to buy this type of platform, we would support everything. If you bought our machine and then you went to, let's say, Aroa and you brought that in, then naturally Aroa would be responsible for theirs. It all depends on the circumstances of the solution, really.
But I presume that what you're actually saying is that obviously if a customer wants to be more flexible with a third-party integrator, you're quite happy to put a turnkey project together with them.
Absolutely, yeah. So if we pull in, say, a third-party into ours, then we'll be responsible for everything to make sure it all works moving forwards.
We still want those cycle time challenge guesses on the wheel that we've got here that's been machined, so put them in the comments box on whichever channel you're watching. Robbie, you said when we did a little bit of a rehearsal yesterday, you had a favourite machine. Which one was it?
It is the NMV. I said earlier, fantastic machine, and obviously that's quite a hollow statement to make, especially from the sales blow. But
elevator pitch 30 seconds, why is it so good?
It's unbelievably accurate. The uptime is 98%, and every single one of them I set, I never get problems with them. I don't know a user in the UK that would complain about an NMV 3000, 5000 or 8000 machine. They just run, they do exactly what they say on the tin, if you like.
And you said that within 30 seconds. That's a very good sales pitch. Right, one more question here. Who can help me decide on the best automation for my application?
So if you come to the sales managers, then basically we'll take you through that process. If we need to, like Martin was on earlier, if we need to get the product managers on board, then we'll get them in. And we also go to the factory as well. So you said it's about a turnkey, so if we need to do a turnkey, we can do that in Japan, in Germany, we can do a turnkey here in Coventry. Start with your sales manager and then go forward from that.
The question, sorry Paul, I like this question, I'm going to stop you there. There is a tool breakage in the tool change cycle on most DMG, if required. Is that, how does that reflect?
Yeah, I mean, you can have it if you want it. You don't have to have it if you don't.
Right.
It's completely up to the customer if they want to have it. Some people don't. Some people never used it, and they've been running for 40 years without it. And then other people live and breathe by tool break detection. So it's very much dependent on the application, type of work.
Are you selling many of these without turnkeys? How much has the market changed?
To be honest, yeah, these I've never sold as a full turnkey. We work with the third-party integrators. It doesn't matter if it's which tooling supplier, which work holding supplier. We'll work pretty much with anyone that the customer wants us to.
And I think it's probably important before we conclude, if you don't mind. Yep. Just give us a quick rundown, let's say on the NHX 4000, the spec, the speed of it, because I know it's quite...
It's broad.
Is it 20,000 RPM spindle?
20,000 is standard on the 4 and the 5. You can go down to 15 if you want high torque. You've got the tool carousel starts at 60 and runs up from there. 60 meters a minute rapid, very, very rigid design. yeah.
And you get 36 months
yeah, master spindle
warranty on the spindle, which is fantastic. I'm sure Paul would agree with me. Automation is such a key part of our lives, and it's only increasing. Obviously, you'll demonstrate that because you're selling quite a lot within your patch, and I know the rest of the team here at
well, you bought an
DMG MORI
automated bike now, haven't you?
I'd love an automated bike,
when you go
especially at my age, Paul.
Automated bike,
yeah,
come
be great. I'm going to hand over to Lindsay to wrap up this session. We'll be back with you very soon.
Thanks, gents. Now, if you've still got questions, please put them in the boxes below because we will be answering those in due course. Now, if you've missed any of the sessions previously, they will all be available on demand on the MTD CNC website. Now, don't go anywhere because at 12 o'clock, we've got a session on after-sales service, and then at 12:45, turn mill technology. We'll see you there. Hello and welcome to the DMG MORI UK Dynamic Excellence live event, and you're joining us in the after sales and service section of our show today. Now this is an interactive session for you to write any questions that you may have directly to the team by writing in the comments box below. Now often you hear the term solutions provider, and this would naturally include the machine and its application, but one of the most important considerations when buying your next machine tool is the company you're buying it from, and specifically the aftercare that they offer. So let's hear from Steve, the Managing Director, who is going to show you around the DMG MORI UK headquarters after sales service department.
So service is a very important part of our business. Customers expect and demand first-class service. Come through here and let me show you exactly how we do this. We have a number of service engineers, 35 in the field, and admin staff looking after spares, looking after the service of it. What we do is we monitor in here. We monitor exactly what is happening. We monitor the performance of the engineers' response time. We monitor the performance of the hotliners, which we'll talk to you in a moment about their fixing first time on the telephone. We monitor how quickly we get to a job, how quickly we fix that job, and we then look at customer surveys very, very deeply to understand how our performance. Let me take you through to the service area where I would like to introduce you to Andy White, who looks after day-to-day service.
Hello, I'm Andy. I look after service at DMG MORI. You're actually in the service office here right now. What we do, this is where the customers call, they contact us to actually look after their machines. If there's a problem, the tickets get logged. There are two ways you can log a ticket. The best way is DMG MORI, the portal. That way you can log your own tickets without having any contact. The first contact you'll get is by a service expert to talk to you about the problem. The other way of doing it would be to phone or email. That would then come through and our service administrators would log that ticket to one of the 4 service experts that are here. In the same office, we also have 2 application engineers, so we have a joined up service here. If you have a problem, no matter what it is, one of these guys will be able to help you. Another way we can help you is Net Service. Net Service grants our service experts and our applications team direct access to your machine. We can look at it via a portal and we can see exactly what's going on. That's the best way of resolving problems. You can also purchase a Net Service camera. That Net Service camera shows live images of what's actually happening on your machine to our service experts. It's probably the best way of resolving your problems. We don't even have to come out to you. Whichever way you choose to contact us, our mission statement is to ensure that we support you so you can support your customers.
Welcome to the DMG MORI UK Dynamic Excellent live event. We're talking about after sales support. But before we talk to Steve Finn, who's the Managing Director here, Paul, Cycle Time Challenge. Tell us a little bit about what you put in front on the earlier shows.
Yes, so we have this wheel here which has been made on a DMG MORI machine. We want to know how fast this has been machined. Now you can watch the first stream that we did today, which was at 10:30. That's still on our YouTube channel, where Martin gives us an overview of how it's made and the machine it's made on. But we need to know how quickly this wheel is machined. Probably an opportunity again for Steve to say what the winner or the person that gets closest to the time will win.
Yeah, COVID conditions allowing, we will have a trip to the Fronten factory, which is down in southern Germany near the Alps, and actually it's a tremendous factory. You've been there, you've seen it. There's machining, there's assembly, there's design, there's all sorts in there. Skiing, yeah, not a great one for me,
Sausages.
but yeah, there is
Sausages,
skiing.
schnitzels.
And lots of sausages.
And
Come back to food, yes.
Exactly. I mean, it's a great prize, a great facility. Both myself and Paul have been there a number of times, and you still keep investing in that Fronten effectively. Please, on our live feeds, send us all your questions. Now, we're talking about after sales support. Now, A couple of weeks ago, Steve, when we was planning some of this event, you said that a lot of the service that you actually provide for your customers, it makes quite a significant part of your overall turnover. But how important is it to DMG MORI UK?
Well, it's important to us, but it's important to actually service the customers correctly. And you know, and I would add, do we get it right every time? No, we don't. But there are systems in place to make sure that we don't keep falling over ourselves, make sure that we monitor how we do things, and give the customer the level of service that he expects. And I've said earlier, as he expects, as he demands, and what he needs to make sure that that spindle keeps turning.
Now throw it over to you, Paul, because you've been in the market a long time. You used to sell a number of different brands of machines. How important was service to you and your customers?
It was everything. You know, I've actually got a note here, and I was going to say to Steve that, you know, the salesman invariably sells the first machine, but if you're going to sell the second and third machine and you've had a problem with service, it becomes massively challenging. It really does, and understandably so, because, you know, when a machine goes down and you have to wait for it to be repaired, you know, and it costs money, it goes against you. So it's very, very important. I look at this, Steve, and I think, I know you've been creating net service and all of these things for many, many years. Can't help but at the moment with the COVID situation, it's kind of played into your hands as well, hasn't it? Because people don't want too many people on site. They don't want engineers unless they have to. It's a little bit like us and our media. Since the COVID crisis, we're doing these things now because it's hard to bring people here.
Yes.
So it's kind of a bad situation, but it does demonstrate what you're achieving.
It's accelerated the usage in the marketplace because we've had it for some considerable time now. But things like net service, where we can remotely diagnose, you know, issues, we can even resolve the issue over the telephone with the customer free of charge. You know, this is not a special line. It's not an ant and deck line. You know, it's a special line that just goes straight through to the machine. Normal charges, telephone charges. There's nothing special there. And we can resolve something like around 60% of the issues that people phone in with, or that they log on My DMG MORI, which is the most efficient way to talk to us. So, you know, just touch on My DMG MORI, which is another way of talking to the customer. You know, how many times have I had a customer who at 7 o'clock in the evening has gone, right, I need to talk to these guys, DMG MORI, tomorrow to get a service technician in. And the next morning he comes in, and at 8 o'clock he doesn't do that call because he gets sidetracked with a production requirement. At 1 o'clock somebody comes up to him, have you spoke to those guys at DMG MORI yet? Oh no. Well, actually what he could have done is, even on his telephone, pressed a picture of the machine, press the button that says need engineer, and then it's our responsibility to contact him at 8 o'clock the next morning. Our responsibility to make sure he gets that level of service. So it's a great way of talking to people now.
And when you're selling, let's say, a turnkey package, can you build the sales support to include the finance that you actually offer, the unique 6 months?
Yes, we can, and we'll talk about that a bit later as well when we go with John Adams on the software. So extra software or insurance packages or finance packages, they can all be encompassed under one pot of money that can be looked after by the finance team.
And just to tell the audience or reflect on, how many engineers do you actually have in the field?
Well, we have about 35 engineers in the field, but you know, Andy Alcock, you know, great guy who's coming up to retirement soon, one of the best writers I think in the industry, real gentleman, contributed a load over the years. He came here to the opening of DMG MORI some 8 or 9 years ago, and he said, Steve, it's not about this wonderful building you've got and all these machines, it's about what's behind you. And he got it straight away. There's a huge support mechanism behind me to allow me to do things that other people, particularly dealers, just cannot even dream about.
I thought you were going to say someone was going to jump out on you behind you.
Well, yeah, Steve McQueen coming over the fence, yeah.
I think there's a really good video on the DMG MORI website, which is actually 1 minute 36 seconds long. Not taking anything away from your introduction, Steve, but it really just demonstrates how the whole thing comes together, doesn't it? From, like you said, when you need to put in a ticket right the way through to the parts being delivered and the engineer there. You say you've got 35 engineers. Do you need less engineers now then? Now you've got this in place rather than engineers having to travel to jobs to diagnose issues. How does that work?
We've got something like circa 5,000 machines out in the field, just in the UK. And we're growing, and actually we go back about the salesman sells the first one, the service sell the second one. 43% of our business currently is with new customers. So that's by market recommendations, as Robbie spoke about earlier. It's about having the confidence in us as a company to not just supply lumber cast iron, but everything that wraps around it, including that service protection. So I think that that's really, really important.
I'm going to interject here. We've got some really interesting questions coming through from the live feed, Steve. How are your service engineers conducting business through COVID-19?
Right.
Which I think is very appropriate, actually.
It is very appropriate, and the first thing that I would say that I've said this every single month to my service guys, you know, I'm really, really grateful for you to continue out there battling. We've had 1 or 2 service engineers that we've had to shield because of their health conditions, and we're still doing that. That's no issues at all. But actually all of the rest of my service team have been out there working. Net service, as you say, has increased because people can work remotely on that point of view. We have to go with a customer that is working under safe COVID conditions. This office here is very, very safe COVID, and we apply all the regulations. So we're a little bit in the hands of the customer, but we've got a questionnaire that goes out to the customer, and if we feel that there is any danger towards our employees or vice versa, then we will bring that to the table and discuss it.
How does it work? It's very impressive the way that the service operates. For example, I've got a Peloton bike. You buy it, and then
that's coming today, isn't it?
And then they say, well, you need to pay £40 a month to tap into the software. What's the sort of is there a subscription? How do these sorts of things work?
The machine comes with net service in the first instance, and there is ongoing subscriptions later on in the life of the machine. But you have the choice to go into various packages, and again, there's no one package that suits any particular customer. So, you know, he may want to select 4 or 5 points from the after sales packages, which we'll talk about later in detail with John Adams, or he may choose not to. He may choose to service the machine himself. He may wish us to service the machine himself. A lot of customers now have to have certification to say the machine has been serviced, particularly aerospace industry. They have to be traceable from that point of view. So they rely on us to actually do the services. So again, that's another part of our business that we do with life cycle products.
And just to remind our live viewers, Steve mentioned talking about software with John Adams. That's going to be our last session tomorrow, and they will he will go through all the different elements, which, you know, if you don't know much about the service elements, it's quite a list, isn't it?
It's very extensive, and again, it comes down to what customers need and how we perform against that.
When going back a few years ago when I was working for a company, they started to adopt spares online, purchasing spares online. Spent a lot of time developing the infrastructure to do that. They found it difficult to get engineers to buy into because we know they still want to pick up the phone and they want to talk to someone. They want to make sure they get the right analysis of whatever the problem is. Can you still do the sort of old-fashioned method of picking up the phone and saying, I've got a problem, I don't know what it is, come and sort it out?
Absolutely. I've got 4 what we call hotliners, specialists. They are probably our 4 most experienced engineering staff that are in the office that will listen to the customer's requests, but also respond to it, so how we actually get there in the first place. And again, with the spares, we've got a number of people that look after the spares that will actually give advice as well.
And putting you on the spot a bit here, Steve, so I do apologise. Roughly how many machines are you responsible for in the UK and Ireland?
Well, as I said, we've got circa 5,000 installations. Now, not everybody wants to work with us for one reason or another. I would suggest at any one time we're probably working with around 50% of that. That keeps us fairly busy. The most unfortunate thing that we see these days is realignments of machines. Little bumps in the night, little crashes, it happens, it's a fact of life. We have lots of ways to overcome that from a point of view of financially supporting it on insurance, and also how we actually get the customer up and running quickly once that happens.
So if you've got any more questions for Steve on service, ask them now before this stream finishes. Steve, from me, you say over 40% is new business, and a lot of those could be, for the reasons that we've discussed throughout the shows, just buy one machine. Could be small companies. Does it affect the response they get compared to somebody that maybe has 10 or 15 of your machines?
There's two ways of doing it. One of the ways, the best way to contact us is through My DMG MORI. So any customer that logs on to mydmgmori.com, it will come up with a registration page. They just register, and the next day it's done. And then what they'll see is a portal. So it's not software that they need to download or anything of that nature. It's a portal. They will see all of their machines on it, and they can actually just press the machine and then just type in, need an engineer, please send me a salesman, but whatever it is, I need an application guy, and it's the best way to contact us. That works on what's called a ticket tool. It's like when you go into a delicatessen, there's a whole row of people standing there. You take your ticket, number 55, and when 55 comes up, that's me. Right? So there's a fairness of the way it goes. So that's the first thing. We make sure there's a fairness. Whether one customer has got one machine or whether he's got 100 machines, he's still got a need. And actually that one customer probably knows the guy who's got 100 machines, because that's maybe where he got the reference, and Robbie was talking very much of that. So we try our very, very best to give the same level of service to all customers, and it's a fast changing environment, which is difficult to manage. But that's why we come back to our KPIs that we have to check to see where we've been and where we're going to.
Steve, if there's engineers out there who've got machines, it doesn't matter what age to a certain extent, that effectively are thinking, I need my machine serviced, I'm not quite comfortable about, or why should I let engineers come in to actually service them? But the machine could be at a point where it could break down. What's your messages to the audience?
Well, the customers that run the preventive maintenance schemes with us most definitely get a better uptime from their machine. And it doesn't break down on a Friday evening when you've got to get a part out to a customer. People that look after things, they work better. That's the laws of mechanics, to be honest with you. We can do various things from that point. It may be an old machine where the customer wants us to do a bit of a tidy up. They want a full rebuild, which we can do as well, which we've done recently on a few machines, where the carcass is good and we've had to completely renew ball screws and lead screws and everything else on that. And we may want to do spot service, which is just once a year spot service and complementing what the customer's doing. So again, it's what do you need, customer, because we can tailor it to suit.
Being an engineer for DMG MORI, assume you get to Germany, wherever, to train, because you'd need that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we've got a high training ethos in our company. Unfortunately, throughout the COVID situation, we've had to stop the travel into Germany, which we've decided up to the end of this year. But what we have said to the guys is that we can do some internal stuff, but we will also make that up next year as well, to make sure that the level of engineer is at the right level.
Final point from me, you've obviously never been in a delicatessen with Mark.
Pass.
Been in a few places with him, but not one of those.
Yes, that's interesting. We can have a few other stories if you wish.
Yeah. Well,
cut the camera.
I was going to say, let's not go about throwing things around out your pram, shall
Greenhouses.
we? Yeah, exactly. But when you look at the service element, I know it's a bit of a cliche. I know I've said this to you before, but I think with sophisticated machine tools like this, you're only as good as your weakest link. And if that spindle breaks, that's got to be fixed. Is that the mantra here?
Yeah, you can often actually pull something out the bag to actually prove how good you are. We had a customer who visited another customer some while back. I was actually on the visit, and this customer, prospective customer, said, so how good is their service? He said, I don't know. He said, I've never used them. So it tells you a little bit about the machine. But the reality is things go wrong, and things go bump in the night. and you've got to get there to make them right and put them back in working order. So it's a big challenge for any machine tool company today, and particularly in today's environment. But I think that DMG MORI are the most innovative placed machine tool company, with all of the things like the net service, the messenger, the My DMG MORI support packages that can help the customer.
If Paul's Peloton bike breaks down that he's building tonight, could you guys fix it for him?
Pass. No.
Well,
I'm hoping it comes assembled.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to go through the instructions, yeah. It says it all. But
Yeah.
look, it's a very fascinating way of actually looking at your service, because I think I wouldn't buy this level of kit personally without actually having some insurance.
Yeah.
That this would, I'm being supportive. You know, you've got customers' demands, you've got you know, pieces to get out to the customer. It's very important. I think it's a great overview. So please keep the questions coming. If you've got any other questions after the event, these guys are very happy to answer on anything that we've been speaking about, you know, over the first day. But it's over to Lindsay to wrap up the third session.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, keep those questions coming in and we're going to answer those in due course. Now, if you've missed any of the sessions so far, they will all be available on demand on the MTD CNC website. The next session is at 12:45 and we're talking turn mill technology, but also tomorrow we're showcasing and launching the brand new UK launch of the M1 machine. This is going to be a very, very popular machine in the industry. Anyway, that's tomorrow, 12:45. We'll see you there. and welcome to the DMG MORI UK Dynamic Excellence live event, and you're joining us in the turn mill section of our show today. Now, we've had great success on the sessions this morning with questions being sent in, so thank you, and do keep them coming in. Now, there's a huge variety of dynamic turning machines that DMG MORI have to offer, and understandably we cannot fit everything into the show. However, we are seeing a trend of engineers needing one-hit machining that require multitasking technology. So we have some examples and demonstrations for you, and we're going to see how accessible they can be through the DMG MORI finance options. Over to you, Mark.
Welcome to the wonderful event at DMG MORI UK, Dynamic Excellent event. This is a fantastic show. I can't believe we're at the end, Paul, but I know you're excited tomorrow because it's the brand new launch of the M1, which is a 3-axis vertical machining centre.
I think so far it's been a real success. Thanks for everyone tuning in. This is the last session today, but every stream we've had today, talking about universal turning, talking about the service, talking about automation, they can all be found on YouTube and across all of our channels. But you're dead right, I'm looking forward to tomorrow as well. 4 more sessions tomorrow starting at 10:30 and the big launch of the M1. Let's not forget as well the cycle time challenge, where you can win that trip to Fronton if you can guess or get the closest guess of how quickly this wheel is machined here.
And to be fair, if you've not been to DMG Fronton in Germany, it's an incredible factory. You'll see some sites that you've probably not seen before, and how much did you learn? And you've been selling machine tools for a long time.
Absolutely loads. Get your questions and answers in as well, because as I say, this is the last session today. We'll be able to, if you ask questions now and we don't get to them throughout the show, we'll obviously be able to answer them, or these gentlemen will.
And before I start, I must apologise about a little bit of a delay. We just had a technical problem, but we're back in the game now.
More on the sofa than we had when we started.
We did. Well, how did you know that?
Anyway,
look. One thing that's really important at DMG MORI is turn mill technology. Now, Kevin, you've been here for many, many years. You've sold many concepts, but about 3-4 weeks ago, I was with one of you guys, and I was with an end user, and we was talking about multi-axis machine, or turn mill, let's say, and he said to me, why would DMG MORI offer a mill turn as to a turreted lathe? And I thought, actually, that's quite a good question. I'll save that for you. Can you answer that question?
That is a good question. That's a very good question, actually. Yeah, I can answer the question. For me, if you operate or program machines, you'll understand that a conventional turreted lathe takes a little bit of setting up. In other words, on a conventional turreted lathe, you have to gather all the components around you in terms of rough turning tool, finish turning tool, boring bars, all of the different milling tools that you would need. And I call that the jigsaw puzzle. So basically you have to get your jigsaw puzzle parts together, build your jigsaw, and then fit that jigsaw onto a turret. Where am I going with this? Well, if you look at a turn mill machine, that's a totally different concept. On a turn mill machine, you would have all your tooling stored in a magazine by the side of the machine, as you can see on any of our machine tools. So therefore, you're not building the jigsaw puzzle every time you want to produce a part. You're calling tools into a single spindle. The other beauty is of using a turn mill machine is that on a turreted machine, you've got many, many tools around the turret that you've got to look at as a programmer operator, whether you're going to get interference with the component, with the bulkhead of the machine. You think about a turn mill machine, it's very, very clean. You've got a milling spindle in there, which tools are mounted into, and you've only got to worry about that one tool in contact with the part.
I think that's an interesting answer, and I hope the customer's actually watching to actually see your answer.
But the thing is, really, for me, the mill turn gives you speed of setup. It gives you a Formula 1 speed of setup. Because you can imagine if you set up a part on a conventional turret lathe, then you build your jigsaw, you make a part. You build another jigsaw, you make a part. On a turn mill, all tools stored, you change your work holding on your main spindle, your work holding in your second spindle, and you can run the component.
This is choice, and everyone wants choice. Now, understandably, with the turn mill, it's more expensive than a conventional lathe. So how do you go about identifying, I mean, let's say we've got components here on the table, which one fits where?
Right, it does depend on the customer's batch work, really. I mean, the pressures on customers at the moment, I'm finding as I'm working with my area sales managers team out in the field, is that complexity is increasing, batch size is actually reducing. So therefore, it's more cost effective often to put the part onto the turn mill machine than it is to try and put it on a turreted machine. Now there's a balance to that, Paul, as you know. If you do multi-volume of turn parts, and it's far quicker to use the turreted machine. But if you've got high complexity, high speed of changeover required, also more tools required on the component, then that's when you would go for a turn mill machine.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yep,
I know you've got lots of questions, you normally do, and they're very good, I might add. Could you just tell the audience the range of the turn mill technology you have here at DMG MORI?
Okay, there's basically 3 families of machines that we offer. We offer the CTX TC range, we offer the NTX range, and we offer the NT range. Now, just to give you an idea on size capacity that gives us, then we start off with a 100mm chuck and we go up to an 800mm chuck. In terms of turning size, then we offer a turn stroke starting at 750mm, and then we go all the way up in various stages of bed length to finish at a machine that has a 6-metre turning capacity.
What I find interesting is a statement on your website about the NTX range, saying that you're incorporating turning centres and machining centres together. That says a lot, doesn't it? I mean, Gavin, from your perspective, you look at that, you have got one of each as one machine.
Yes, we do. And it opens up a whole world, really, of components where you can do the milling, turning, all on the one machine without an issue, really.
Yeah, I would say that all of our turn mill machines have our master spindle in them. So it's a spindle really from the milling machine range. So there's no compromise on your milling performance on a DMG MORI machine.
And you also state, a bit like me, it's not susceptible to aging. Which how does that happen? How do you build the machines, the foundations, in order to make them do the same at the start of the day to what they do in 15 years' time?
It's a good question. Basically, what we do, we make sure that we put fluid throughout the machine. So we pass fluid, as you probably are aware, Paul, in the main spindle. We pass a fluid into the opposed spindle. On some of the machines, we put that fluid through the bed, and then we also put that cooling fluid into the milling spindle as well. So as the machine runs through a 24-hour period, we make sure that the whole machine's temperature rises together. Rather than getting one component moving away from another through expansion, we keep them at a constant rising temperature together, so that all the alignments remain very accurate.
And when you're selling a solution to a customer, do you just look at the size of the part or the complex of the part?
We take all of that into account, actually. We look at what business the customer's into, whether they've been tasked with high complexity, as we said earlier, small batch work.
Well, it's even. I think it might have been coming from yourself, Kevin. I was talking. Tool makers are a good area for these machines as well. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I look at a tool maker cutting hard materials. But I suppose when I think about it, I think, well, actually, yeah, this technology does lend itself to that area. You've got the stability.
Well, we've got customers actually who are doing no turning whatsoever on their turn mill machines. We've got one customer who basically loads a blade profile and machines that in its entirety. The spindle doesn't actually rotate, but that's fine.
Well, that's a good point, actually. I mean, talking about the NTX 1000, now
yes.
we've got a live demo on the screen. Could you just talk us through what we're actually seeing here?
Sure,
Kevin?
Mark. Okay, so that's the NTX 1000 main spindle. You can see the DMG MORI compact milling spindle here. So our milling spindle is specifically designed for the machine to be only 350 millimeters in length. It's one of the smallest and most compact spindles that's available of any machine tool in the market. And the reason I talk about that is that, as you can imagine, when you've got the spindle horizontal, if you've got a large milling spindle, it can really start to restrict the size of component you can have in your machine tool.
I also, one of the things I like about seeing this is that tool changer area. I mean, that gives you, it's very accessible, Gavin, isn't it, from the operator's perspective when he's, you know, standing at the front of the machine. He's got the control, but he's also got that ETC there.
Yes, it is. It's great viewing on through the compartment door. Coming on to the tools, we can actually offer, well, we actually use multi-tools as well. So we can offer roughing, turning and grooving, or whatever tools you'd like to put in there. And the benefit of that is quick tool changes. So obviously with a mill turn machine, it takes a while for it to load the tool and to load the tool. But with this here, within half a second, you can be chip to chip.
So you can just essentially index it to the next position or move it to the next position, and you're...
Correct.
Yeah, it's just like having a turret on a mill turn machine, a mini turret if you like.
Would you lose any accuracy from that though?
No.
Why not?
Because of the accuracy of the rotation of our spindle, you're relying just on your x-axis and your z-axis position. As long as you've rotated to the centre height, and the encoder within the b-axis spindle is very, very accurate for that. And then we actually hydraulically clamp the tool in position on a DMG MORI, so we don't vary the centre line of any of the tools.
You mentioned about this spindle and the size of it, the height, the width, however you want to apportion it. It's powerful and it's fast, and I know we're going to talk about the CTX in a minute and offering a similar concept. How do you pack all that into such a small area?
It's very interesting you ask that, and our designers have quite a difficult time in achieving that, but Dr. Mori sets a standard that he wants for his machine tools. And Dr. Mori said to his design team, look, one of the biggest issues we have on any turn mill machine is the size of a mill turn spindle. So therefore, go away, design me a spindle for this market that's compact, rigid, and delivers all of the criteria that's needed. And that spindle, actually, incidentally, Paul, is the same spindle that we use on the CTX range and on the NTX range.
We're talking really about six-face machining here, applications on the table.
Yep.
This is an area of industry which is attractive to buyers because they don't want to be moving parts around the machine shop today. Really, that's the whole ethos here, isn't it?
Flexibility, speed of changeover, highly complex parts can be manufactured on this machine as well. The reason I say that, on a standard turret turning lathe, as you know, you're going to be confined by the amount of tools you can get on the turret. I know Steve said earlier we can get a lot of tools on a conventional turret, we can. But if you imagine, say, this part here on the table on my left, highly complex part, needs a lot of different turning tools. Well, if you've got a magazine with 180 tools in the magazine, you've got no issues making a part that's highly complex like that. The other thing to bear in mind as well is you actually reduce the amount of tooling you need on a mill turn. Because if you bring a rough turning tool into the spindle of the machine, that rough turning tool can be used on the main spindle, and then if you move with your Z-axis to the opposed spindle and rotate the spindle around 180 degrees, the same roughing tool can be used on the opposed spindle.
Moving forward to the range, now Gavin, you've been application led, but you're the showroom manager here at DMG MORI UK. Now, I've seen you actually put together some really complex demos, but the one we're going to see on the CTX with Roadwood to go is you're telling me that it's quite a basic operation, but to show how easy it is for setup. Is that correct?
Correct. So on this component here, we actually have multiple different parts of it,
yep,
which is great for teaching people. So obviously we turn it, we do some milling, a bit of B-axis turning on there, and we also introduce some technology cycles as well, the multi-thread, but we can also do splines, hobbing, crown hobbing, and we can also, on longer shafts, we can actually introduce other technology cycles for turning longer components
Balance turning.
with
correct, isn't it?
alternating spindle speeds.
And with the demo that we're actually looking at the moment, can you just talk us through this?
So obviously there we have the B-axis tilted at 45 degrees, which allows us to turn. We go straight in with a U-drill there. Obviously, if you don't want to rotate the spindle, you can rotate the milling spindle instead. Still a hell of a lot of power there. Through coolant all the way through. Long reach boring bars with oscillating spindle speeds. You can reduce all your chatter, no problem at all. You can introduce as well other things like MPC, which is feeling the tool, so it's constantly monitoring how the loads on the tools.
Anything to add, Kevin, while we're watching this?
Yeah, I mean, Gavin's brought up a lot of features there. There are what we call our technology cycles. So this is basically our programmers in both Germany and Japan have written programs that make, for instance, gear milling, gear skiving, very, very simple to program. So we try to make the control and the support for the control as user-friendly to the operator as we can. So you can actually, you know, standing in front of the machine, write a program actually for milling quite a complex gear. It's filling in masks and then allowing the program to be auto-generated.
So if you've got any questions for the guys here, get them in. We're going to be here streaming live for the next few minutes if you want to know any more about DMG MORI's NTX or CTX. Now, on this CTX machine, I've got to say, we reviewed this at Fronton, we looked at it.
We did, yeah.
It was off the agenda to start with because we were looking at other machines, but I saw it and I thought, I've got to look in more detail at that machine. Some of the reasons for that, up to 20,000 RPM on that milling spindle. We're talking about a CTX machine, so smaller than the NTX, aren't they? Up to 180 tools still, up to 127 mil bar capacity.
Yes.
It's just a cell on its own, isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, it's massive capabilities on the CTX range. There's a beta and a gamma machine. Don't want to go into too much detail, but basically in the family. And
what's the difference, just out of interest?
well, beta's one frame size, and then gamma's a different size frame.
Right, okay.
So you start with a beta, which is the 800 machine. That's a 400 mil chuck, and then we go to the gamma 630. But on that size of machine, you're looking at 59 kilowatts of main spindle power, which is just massive. 4,000 Newton meters of torque on the main spindle. Okay, the opposed spindles are a little bit less in this case, but there's still colossal amounts of power, really, for a turn mill machine.
And I've always one thing I've always admired about DMG MORI, they're always looking to lead the charge, the next piece of technology. And I remember many years ago the linear drive motor,
right?
One of the first to that, weren't they? On this machine, or some of these machines, you have the linear drive. I'm interested to know why it is on some machines and not on others, because it's in the Z-axis, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's mainly, it's only on the larger stroke machines. So as you're probably aware, a linear drive will give you far faster acceleration. It gives you far faster speed, movement of speed. And also, one of the biggest points of this is reduced wear, because if you have a linear motor on our machine, then you get a 5-axis warranty on that drive system. And on the longer bed length machines, you can imagine if you had a 6-meter machine, then the mill spindle is going to be traversing quite a long distance to and fro from the tool change area. So you want maximum speed, maximum acceleration, and clearly you don't want to be wearing that axis out.
So before we talk about finance,
right?
Why do you sell so many?
Why do we sell so many? Because the team at DMG MORI are able to listen very carefully to the customer. We're able to offer a massive range of different machine tools. So we can select the right mill turn machine, or turn mill machine, I should really say, for your application. There's no compromise. We have a machine in the range that will fulfill most customers' requirements.
That's a very good point. Now,
5-year warranty on that linear drive, because I was going to ask you, I was going to say, well, how reliable is it? But I suppose the proof is in the fact that you're prepared to support it.
There's no wear parts really, is there? It's, you know, a magnet and a motor opposing each other, whereas a ball screw drive, is friction.
And I think the next point is, backed up with your unique finance package, Kevin, up to 6 months and not pay a penny. Before we go over to Lindsay to talk to James about that, please send your questions in to us, because these guys are on the hot sofa to answer them after Lindsay. Over to you, Lindsay.
James, thank you for joining us as part of the live session. DMG MORI Finance, just a brief introduction. What's it all about?
Well, DMG MORI Finance is the group's own leasing company. It doesn't want to rely on outside parties influencing lending decisions that could be affected by economic cycles or pandemic. It's here to support manufacturers investing in DMG MORI machines in the UK and Europe wide.
Okay, so instead of going to a bank, we go to yourself. So how is it that you see a deal differently, and how does that benefit the engineer, the end user?
Well, it's a very interesting point, Lindsay, and actually let's pick up on the CTX and Robo to go.
Yeah.
That's an expensive machine, circa £500,000, which is a lot of money in anyone's book. The CTX in particular in the showroom, which is going to go to a small company, it's a one-man band.
Oh, okay. A one-man band?
One-man band, yes.
A machine like that's not considered normal in the industry, is that right, if you were going to a bank?
It would be very, very unusual, because the company's reserves on paper would not justify lending to that amount of money. But we've had the ability to sit down with that customer, understand his work, understand what the contracts look like, and for us, the risk isn't £500,000. It's merely the gap between what we sell the machine for and what value that machine has in the used marketplace. So that's our true risk, not £500,000, but maybe 100,000 on day one.
And how does that help the end user in terms of a monthly payment? You're kind of like tailoring a deal to somebody. Well,
that's the only way it has to be, because every customer is different. And what this does, by being able to lend £500,000 against a machine tool with a 35% residual at the back end, we give the customer a low monthly payment. We've also given him 6 months to generate income at the start of the agreement.
Yeah.
But also allow a very progressive company that ordinarily wouldn't be able to invest in such a technological machine with automation. We're going to let him compete right at the cutting edge.
Yeah, and then in turn, when that happens, then the business will grow, they'll have a competitive edge, and in turn they'll be looking to expand the company with more machines.
And grow the business, and the whole thing works.
Has it been a success? Have you got any success stories? Who's using DMG MORI Finance?
Well, over 48% of the machines sold in the UK by DMG MORI are financed by DMG MORI Finance, and that runs right the way through the OEM sector through to our subcontract base, which is a 50-50 split in the UK currently.
Wow, and in the current climate, of course, we're all going through it. How are you viewing this differently?
Well, it's not so much how we view things, it's a simple fact of we're here to support customers. So first and foremost, number one, we've supported customers that have been affected by the pandemic with repayment holidays and lower payments to get them through this awful period that they're going through. And then secondly, we want to make sure that when customers come through the other side and want to invest, we're here to support them.
Okay, so really you're telling me that people who could kind of not think that they could get that higher technology because of cost, you're making that more tangible, more approachable.
We're making it achievable, Lindsay.
Achievable, yeah, that's a perfect word. So in summary, why DMG MORI Finance?
DMG MORI Finance, we're specialists, we understand the industry, we're flexible, and we're here to support customers moving forward.
And how do people get in touch?
Either through DMG MORI here or through your local area sales manager.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, James.
Lindsay,
now,
thank you.
Back to the main floor for the questions and answer session.
And why wouldn't you buy a DMG MORI machine when you've got that opportunity with the finance? Now, we were just chatting here actually. Now, when you look at components, I'm like a kid in a candy store. You've got some fabulous parts here, but tell us a little bit about the gear mechanism that you've got over here.
Yeah, a lot of people, when they invest in a turn mill machine, want to do some fairly complex parts, and what we've been able to do at DMG MORI is add the facility for gear cutting on our machines with the use of a technology cycle, and that's either gear skiving, which is for smaller gears really, or gear cutting as you see here. Incidentally, Mark, I don't know whether you can see it very clearly on there, but also on a CTX we can offer a grinding capability, and that part was actually turned first op, second op, gear cut and ground.
The grinding is an interesting one because I know, again from being at Fronton, seeing one of the larger DMU 100p machines, I think it was actually had the grinding facility on it. There's a fair bit you need to do with the machine though, isn't there? Because it's, you know, you've got the grinding paste, you've got all of those aspects that can make it not quite as simple as just putting a grinding wheel in and
You're right,
doing
Paul,
it.
but we can take care of that.
Yeah.
What we do on the CTX range, if we're adding grinding to it, there'll be an acoustic sensor placed in the spindle. There'll be a vastly improved coolant filtration system on the machine. The sealing of the guideways of the machine will be enhanced. On the filtration system we'll have hydrocyclones in there, because as you probably very well know, that when you're grinding you're going to start to lose a bit of grit. That grit's going into the machine tool, and if you're not careful, if you're pumping that grinding paste, which it really is, through a machine tool, it would...
What about storage of the tool as well, or the grinding wheels? That's the area, the circumference, all of those things you must have
to... As you know, the grinding wheels are taken outside the machining area, they're parked into the magazine.
Yeah.
If you notice, on most DMG MORI machines, all tools are kept horizontally.
Okay.
So therefore you're not getting the coolant dripping from the face of the tool down onto the taper. So it's all... There's a lot of detail that has been taken care of over many, many years of experience with the group.
This is a learning curve for you, isn't it? It
As
really
ever.
is.
As
It's good.
ever.
It's good. Now, questions and answers. Now, this is probably quite a basic question. Why should I choose an NTX over a CTX TC?
Okay, well, there are slightly different sizes on the CTX to the NTX, but really the major difference for me is purely in the control, because the CTX machine comes from our German factories, and it's built with the Siemens controller, which is fantastic control for support of the programming and operating. Yet the NTX clearly comes from our Japanese paternity, and that's more orientated around Mitsubishi and Fanuc controls. But the machines are equally as capable. I mean, you've seen today that you've got the same master milling spindle being used on the CTX as that on the NTX.
And there's no difference, because this is another question on the if you look at the milling spindle on both models, we've got a question here saying what's the milling spindle options on the NT1000? I assume that would apply then to the CTX as well, would it? But what are they?
I mean, basically you've got a 15,000 RPM spindle going up to a 20,000 RPM spindle. But on the Speedmaster range, what's really interesting in that is that you get the same torque, 120 Newton meters available on the 15,000 to that of the 20,000. So there's not really a performance drop.
Technology cycles, one for you maybe, Gavin. Tell us about what they are and how they work and how easy they are to get to grips with.
So the technology cycles are extra cycles that we offer. Basically, crown hobbing, skiving, alternating speeds. But the beauty of them are how simple they are to use. So actually walk up to the control, you're quite literally filling in a few boxes and pressing go. And
get graphical support on the control, don't you?
100% graphical support, and what you see on that screen is what you get each time.
Talking about what you get, another good question here is that the CTX range looks expensive, is it?
Well, it depends in terms of what you're looking to manufacture. I mean, I wouldn't put a CTX machine to the manufacture of a washer, for instance. But then if you've got a landing gear for an aircraft, that machine is pretty capable of producing that sort of part. You know, you basically ask us the question what we think is the most suitable machine for the application. And we can also look at a return on investment calculation as well. You know, so relatively in the industry, the CTX is no more expensive than any competitor's machines.
I always wonder how easy this technology is to get to grips with. I mean, we talk on all our shows about sometimes engineers' reticence to take the next step, to take the next level. They look at automation and say, I don't need that. They look at a machine and say, well, that's going to be complicated to learn. But I listening about your technology cycles, it takes a lot of that away, doesn't it? It makes that learning curve very, very simple.
Well, what you've got really, you've got the two companies that have come together over the years, as you know, the original DMG, the original Mori Seiki to come DMG Mori, and we've used that synergy of engineers to come together and generate some of the most simple to use programming and operating systems of any company that can offer a machine.
This seems to be quite a popular subject. More questions coming in. Does the NTX have a lower turret? If so, what is the spindle speed of the tools?
Okay, if you wish to make your turn mill centre a little bit more productive, so now we're probably going for a more productive part, then yes, you can add a lower turret. You would add a lower turret to help the machine to be more productive. You would also, I would recommend adding a lower turret if you're doing long shaft turning. And the reason I like that is that I can bring two tools into contact with a part and help steady the part. We can also use the speed system that we have, alternating speed, to take out any chatter. But getting back to the other question, is that turret can clearly turn and can clearly mill if you wish. And we actually use the built-in motor turret technology, as we have and as I've been explained in other sessions today, on the NTX machine in the lower turret. So even the lower turret is capable of some phenomenal milling.
So you can still get like 10,000 RPM, is it 8 or 10,000?
10,000 RPM.
10,000.
I think this needs to be the last question, guys. We are going over time, but as it's the last session, why not? What tool interface do your mill turn machines offer? HSK, Capto, C5 or C6?
We offer all of those. So you can choose your machine and choose your spindle. What I would say is HSK is becoming more popular. No disrespect to Capto. Why is HSK more interesting? It's because a lot of people are using, say, an NHX like this you see here, and if this has a HSK spindle, then clearly there's a cost saving, because you can take your HSK tooling out of your NHX machine and put it straight into a CTX, NTX or an NT.
Well, I've learned a lot. Thanks very much, Kevin. Just to wrap up the first day here at DMG Mori UK, what have you learned?
Been superb. I couldn't tell you in the time we've got that much. But seriously, it is, you know, we learn a lot when we're here. I think across the board, interesting to hear about the universal turning, as well as then you know, the DMV and the NHX, and of course then the CTX and the NTX range. True multitasking technology, and of course the service and support, as Steve spoke about. But don't forget, M1 tomorrow.
He's very excited, aren't you?
Yeah, the new M1.
Well,
entry-level machining centre, true entry-level machining centre for £54,000. We'll be launching that tomorrow on the show.
And just to recap, you know, these guys have 157 machines in their portfolio. It's phenomenal. We've learned a lot on turning, turn mill, also the after sales and support and automation, but also the trip, the cycle time challenge. Are you going to mention that again?
Yep, so cycle time challenge, whoever can guess the closest time to this wheel being machined will win a trip to the DMG Mori Fronton factory when times are a bit better and we're COVID is out the way, or COVID secure.
So thanks very much for joining us all at DMG Mori UK Dynamic Excellence live event. Over to Lindsay to wrap up the session.
Right, thank you everybody, and thank you for all of your questions. If you still need your questions answered, put them in the comments box below and we'll be answering those in due course. Now, if you do want to watch any of the sessions, maybe you've missed them, they'll all be available on demand on the MTD CNC website, and they're available from pretty much as soon as we finish this session on YouTube. Tomorrow we have an epic live show for you. 3, 4 and 5 axis additive manufacturing. We're covering it all from 10:30. And something that is huge, the UK's launch of the M1 machine. This is going to be a popular machine. So we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow at 10:30.